Hey guys, it's Payne. I'm really excited to introduce a brand new show to Bet the Board that combines sports and alternative investing, the very first of its kind. Sports betting and collectibles converging is inevitable. Let me tell you why. Sports cards and memorabilia are another way to get money into the market and do it without limit restrictions or the substantial hold you're accustomed to with sports betting. Whether you collected cards as a kid and are looking to get back into the hobby, this podcast is for you. If you've been collecting cards for years, this podcast will make you think and operate more efficiently. Are you in real estate? The parallels to investing in sports cards and memorabilia are uncanny. You're on Wall Street. Well, listen close. The best sports cards have outperformed the S&P 500 by 6x since 2013. And during the 2008 market crash, sports cards held up better than the S&P 500. Bet the Board, in conjunction with PWCC, presents CardBoard Chat, an entertaining, sophisticated, and informative podcast that combines sports, analytics, betting, cards, and memorabilia. Without further ado, this is CardBoard Chat with Jesse Craig, a leading figure in the collectible space, and me, Payne. How goes it, my man?
It's going pretty good. How about you? How was the wedding?
It was not bad. No.
Yeah.
You know, my running joke is I want to be everyone's like seventh or eighth best friend, where I just missed that cut of being in the wedding. But it was actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
And you were in this wedding, I'm
I
assuming.
was in this wedding. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the wedding.
But it was smooth.
It was smooth, relatively speaking. Yeah.
And
aside
and
from
Todd
the whole
looked,
suit thing.
Todd looked gorgeous.
As good as he could look, yeah.
Good. Good. Yeah, I shot him a congrats text, and we were talking a little bit. It sounds like you guys had a good time and everything went well.
It was a blast. How's everything your way? I log on to the old interwebs and I see you got you're growing Randy Johnsons out in your backyard.
Yeah, you know, my boy Mason, one of the twins. It's funny, the kids are totally opposites. He hits right-handed, throws left, and then my other twin Marley swings left-handed and swings left and throws right. And they both throw football. You know, one throws right-handed, Marley, and Mason throws left-handed. Golf, Marley swings left and Mason swings right. So they just do everything the opposite. It's pretty funny. But the little guy Mason, he's got like those fast twitch muscles, and at this age, when you're throwing a baseball, man, I mean he can huck the thing pretty good. So we've had some fun, and you know, I shot the video over to one of my buddies who played in the MLB, and I'm like, hey man, I think we got something here. Like let's build on this. And he's like, man, he like actually broke it down. He's like, his motion's actually really short and compact. We need to lengthen that, and starts going through all this stuff. And I was like, I just wanted a thumbs up. That's it.
That's it. Just
make me feel better.
Just need a little approval. We got a shot here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but no, it's fun.
Okay. Last time we spoke was a couple days before the draft. Now we're going to talk a little draft aftermath, so to speak, and maybe go over some teams that were impacted most. Anything come to front of mind for you in terms of the NFL draft and the teams that maybe won it, or as we kind of correlate this back to sports cards, anything possibly brewing for you in your mind with, you know, a player that could surge and have an impact on the football card market?
Yeah, you know, breaking it down after the draft and where everyone went, you know, I know I talked about C.J. Stroud before, but he's not going to be a guy I'm focusing on for this conversation, actually, after everything kind of panned out. Bryce Young going 1 overall in Carolina. You know, they have the third easiest schedule from what I see going into next year. So that's great, right? I mean, you talk about a rookie coming in to a team. They do have some decent weapons there, but, you know, having an easy schedule is important. And the same with Anthony Richardson. You know, the Colts have the fourth easiest schedule going into next year as well. So he's in an opportunity where he can actually make an impact really early on. You know, their head coach, former OC over at the Eagles, and I think that style of offense, allowing him to have the ball in his hand to be a playmaker, you know, he's going to have an impact. But from a card perspective, anytime these drafts happen, you really you look at QBs first. It's what moves the needle in our space. And so any of these QBs that can make an impact early, you're going to see their cards. There's going to be a lot of anticipation around them as well, right? Like people are going to be spending money as soon as they can on Bryce Young, as soon as they can on Richardson, on all these guys, to believe that they're going to pan out. Now the question is, when's the first release come for any of these guys? Right? When does it's the Select XRC? That's usually the first product that comes out with their cards. The XRC Gold is like their first really important card that comes out, and I think that's about halfway through the season that comes out.
You would know better than I would. I'm an old head. I just remember that this game has completely changed with these releases coming out most of the time after the first year is even done. It's just everything's changed. I mean, it's very difficult. Like the entry point is just far greater now, which enhances the risk. And we've had this conversation here and privately. Like I've only made one real quarterback play since I've gotten back into the card market in 2016. It was Patrick Mahomes. And it's like you could get a short printed on card contenders auto raw for like $300 to $350 after his rookie season. And it's just very difficult now. The floor is much higher to get into this. The risk is elevated. And I think what's interesting is like we talked, again, a couple of days before the draft, and we were talking about guys that we thought had like the boom or bust potential, and we knew Bryce Young was going to go number one. And now all of a sudden, I don't know if you're following this, like Carolina's GM, Scott Fitterer, comes out and is like, right now, Andy Dalton's starting quarterback, which is...
Yeah, bullshit.
I hope that's the case because like, Bryce Young...
The Red Rocket can't survive that much longer in the league.
Like, it would be brain dead if that were to transpire, right? I mean, like, Bryce Young, the reason we thought he was going number one because he was the guy that was most ready to start day one. And, you start to, like, think about this. There wasn't a ton of discrepancy between the top three quarterbacks. Carolina gave up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and then DJ Moore to move up 8 spots. And I think if you're going to potentially sit your first-round quarterback for Andy Dalton, you kind of hinder the ability to build around a QB while he's on that rookie deal and not get all 5 of those affordable years out of him. And my thought process would be like, if you were going to go that route, why not draft a higher ceiling quarterback? So hopefully this is a little lip service from Fitterer.
It is. Yeah. That's exactly. They're trying to motivate Young and this and that. Come on, man. Like, the guy's going to start week 1. Give me a freaking break. That's ridiculous. But there's even some other teams out there, like some other from the draft, some teams that I noticed that made some good moves. I mean, look at the Bears. They're shoring up their offensive line. Another team, top 5 on the easiest schedule list for 2023. Can the Bears finally figure it out with Fields? Just let the guy run. Maybe just have 3 running backs, including Fields in the backfield, and just let him run. The Eagles, their offense was amazing last year, but they went ham on defense in the draft. And that could really create some offensive opportunities with turnovers and whatnot for Hurts and those guys to score. So, I mean, I like what the Eagles did in the draft. A couple non-quarterbacks. I know we talk about quarterbacks, but Bijan Robinson with the Falcons, he's going to get a ton of carries. He should be a big piece of that offense. Zay Flowers with the Ravens. Lamar got a new contract and a new toy as of late. His speed is kind of like when, if you remember Lamar and Marquise Brown, right? I kind of see some of that parallel right there. So there's a lot of interesting storylines, I think, from the draft. Nothing crazy, like nothing stands out as like, oh, this is easily number one. But it was an interesting draft.
I think he actually went down the right path, and maybe it's not the quarterbacks that were just drafted a week ago, but some of the improvements those teams you mentioned and the possibility it means for the quarterbacks that they've had there. I mean, you hit it perfectly with Philadelphia, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts comes up just short. We know he's in the NFC conference, which is substantially easier, and the Eagles are in win now mode. And I thought they drafted 2 day one contributors along the defensive line. The one area of like concern there was like Javon Hargrave was their best interior defensive lineman on the roster. And
who?
Javon Hargrave, the guy that you guys signed for Sanford.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. And then like Fletcher Cox is old. And now you go and get the best player in the draft in Jalen Carter. And then you have Nolan Smith, who I think will be a situational pass rusher right away. You got some old guys there along the defensive line with like Brandon Graham. But he was a guy that was getting mocked in the top 12 picks by some guys, and you get him at 30, and then you trade for DeAndre Swift to fill a position of need cheaply, and so I think that's interesting. You mentioned, I believe your play this offseason was Jared Goff. Now it sucks that Jameson Williams gets docked there for gambling in the clubhouse. It's only 6 games, but I thought the interesting draft was the Lions, right? Because I love the players. You get Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, both are ballers, but I think a lot of people were crapping on those picks because of the value, right? Like they were overdrafted. Right. Not a ton of value, there in correlation with the pick, not premium position. So it's tough for me to gauge that. But I thought Jahmyr Gibbs is a really good player. Jack Campbell tested wildly off the charts as being athletic, even though you think of like a white guy from Iowa not being that. And then the rest of their draft was very good. Sam Laporta, Brian Branch took a flyer on Hendon Hooker. So I think, our draft grade on the Lions was far superior than like a lot of the talking heads. I know Yahoo Sports gave Detroit an F grade for their draft. One that's interesting to me, and I'm not a huge Kenny Pickett guy, but I thought the Steelers continued their best offseason in ages with a great draft. Went up day one, got a starter at tackle with Broderick Jones. They addressed, a position of need with the family royalty there and Joey Porter Jr. I know a lot of guys were mocking him at like 18 to Pittsburgh in round 1 there, and then so you get him in round 2 and brought in Keanu Benton, so that'll help the run defense. Just, I thought their draft was good. I thought their offseason's been really interesting, and so maybe, it's, again, not a guy that was, drafted a week ago, but maybe someone from last year's draft that'll have an impact. To your point, though, I think there's a ton of these other players that will be impactful. I just don't know how it correlates to the card market. Like, who does Tennessee have as a receiver? Like, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be a day one contributor. I don't know if I'm investing in wide receivers.
Right. Yeah. Well, the value's not there. Now, there's always an ROI play, right? Like you can buy things will go up in value if people perform typically. So it's like, you might be able to buy that wide receiver's, Prism PSA 10 for $50, and if he starts performing, maybe it goes to 75 to 80 to 100, which is a huge increase from a percentage basis. It's just not as not as easy. It takes more work, right? Where a quarterback, you could buy something for $5,000, and if he plays really well, maybe it goes to $7,500 or $8,000 or even higher because they get all the attention. So the needle doesn't get moved as much with the other skill players, the wide receivers, the running backs, etc., and definitely not anyone on defense, unless you're an all-timer, and it's still even hard at that point. But quarterbacks just run the world in the football market.
2 all-timers that we're going to talk about here in our Undervalued segment of the week.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time, folks. That's right. We're going to discuss undervalued and overvalued cards, or maybe even some memorabilia assets, potentially some players. Is it time to buy, sell, or hold on to these assets or players? We'll give you some opinions and back it up.
I saw your choice this week when you sent it over, and immediately, little tingles below the belt.
Good.
I don't usually like to admit another man providing that type of feeling for me, but here we go. Talk to us about your undervalued pick of the week.
Yeah, I'm here to provide for you when needed, okay? All right. This week's undervalued are...
That's my type, married men with multiple kids.
All right, so my undervalued card of the week are Babe Ruth cards with cut autos. So these you don't see sell more than a couple times a year typically, and it's impossible because of some of the different issues to know what quantity is actually on the market of them. But let me ask you this question, Payne. What do you think a 1/1 Jordan auto from, call it National Treasures, what do you think that would sell for today?
Shoosh, it's a good question. You're putting me on the spot here. A lot of the exquisite stuff is ticking down. There's a lot of that out there of like patch autos. He's not really signing anymore.
And it's a 1/1 though. That's the biggest thing. I'm talking about, these cut autos are typically 1/1s or 1/2s. So really low numbered stuff from Jordan. That's got to be a 6-figure card.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I was trying to not have that that massive gap, but I agree with you. Definitely over 100K.
Yeah. Exactly.
I would think, yeah.
So the crazy thing that after doing the research on these, the record for a single signed Babe Ruth cut auto is 42,000.
Yep.
That's insane.
How long ago was that?
Last year, I believe.
Okay.
I understand it's a cut auto, not an on-card auto, but the guy's been dead for a long time, and we can't have that luxury. So you get what you get. But you talk about Jordan easily being in the 6 figures, and I'm talking 250 to 500 is probably the range I would put it in. And the Ruth conversation is similar to the Jordan conversation, is the greatest of all time. And people might try to make an argument for this player or that player, but usually they end up losing the argument. It's pretty consistent that Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time, and it's hard to make an argument for anyone else. So for me, with the quantity of these being fairly low, like I said, you only see a couple sell every other year. I don't understand why these haven't caught fire more. I just think that they should be going for 6 figures without question. Babe Ruth has one of the most beautiful signatures in my opinion of all time. And yes, he did sign a decent amount, but you're talking about the greatest player of all time. Jordan signed a lot too, until he didn't, right? Until he stopped. And now we've got the same thing with Ruth because he's passed away, so he doesn't sign anymore, obviously. But these cards are so beautiful with his, cursive signature being a 1/1 or a 1/2. I see there being a massive upside in these cards.
I don't disagree at all. And I'd love for Panini and Topps to stop finding these Ruth autos, and I think this is a really good pick, right? Like just flat out. And my comparison was maybe not Jordan, but yours is better there. But we see these Ruth vintage autograph cards skyrocketing, right? And eclipsing 6 figures, and some over $250,000. You guys sold a signed Gaudy Ruth that went for, I want to say something like $280, right? Right. And so now all of a sudden it's like, damn, like Ruth cut autos still can be had for the lower 5-figure range. So relatively speaking, like just value there with that massive delta. I know we're only in May and all the baseball products haven't been released for this year, but I think it's a positive sign that these are also potentially drying up, because you look in 2021, Topps and Panini combined for 21 different Ruth cut autos. In 2022, it was down to 17, and according to Beckett, there's just 1 so far in 2023. So hopefully, with Fanatics taking over Topps, like this becomes less prevalent and more of like this annual chase with only maybe 1, 2, or 3 of these ever being produced in a calendar year. I would focus on some of the earlier Ruth cut autos, though, like late 90s, early to mid 2000s, if you're in the market for sure. I know you guys had a pretty beautiful one from, I want to say SP Authentic semi-recently.
SGC 8.5, yeah. I remember
yes,
that.
Yep, and that was the one that kind of twisted my brain into a kerfluffle on the Honus Wagner, which you won in magic number
That's
by
right.
a landslide. Okay, mine is another legend, but we're going to football. It's going to be a 1957 Topps Johnny Unitas rookie, and I think there's so many things that I like about this one, and kind of gravitating towards a card in a sector of the hobby that's undervalued relative to, you think its counterparts. I also think there's probably, some good timing here if you can execute quickly. The 1957 Topps Football Johnny Unitas, when you think about like vintage football, that card, vintage football in general, compared to like vintage basketball and baseball, still very much like way behind for whatever reason.
Way behind.
Yep, and it's now the largest sport in America, and it's only increasing popularity globally. And I think, a card that you put on this list that we'll talk a little bit about later, I won't go into much detail now, but on the surface, right, like a PSA 8.5 Bill Russell rookie is going to sell for at least 15x what a PSA 8.5 Johnny Unitas rookie last sold for. And the Russell's a pop 2, the Unitas a pop 6. And, just even coming down a tick in grade. the last PSA 8 Johnny Unitas that you guys sold in February did $13K. It's a pop 190. I get that the Bill Russell's a little bit rare, about 25% of the population in PSA 8, but the last comp's $192K. So again, like, you know, using your word, that delta is so large, even if the 57 hoop set is a little bit more important because there hadn't been a major release since 48 Bowman. And, you know, again, we're not in football season. Vintage football underpriced. Vintage a little bit safer when there's some economic turmoil. And I think if you can snag one here in the next couple of days before the Bill Russell potentially sets a record and people start playing the equivalent game like we just did here, you might be able to get in at today's price before, you know, next week's price resets a little bit.
Yeah, I love this pick. You know, we've talked about the 57 Topps football set on this pod before. It is probably the best football set of all time. You could say the National Chickle. Outside of that, I don't know if it has a really comparison. It's got to be 57 Topps. So for me, you know, he's a top 3-4 quarterback of all time. 3-time NFL champion, 3-time MVP, you know, 4-time NFL passing yards leader and 4-time NFL touchdown leader. Like, that's incredible. And you mentioned PSA 8s of his. Let's knock it down even another notch. You can buy a PSA 7 of one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time for like $2,500. And the card's 70 years old.
Yep.
In a 7. You think about like Mickey Mantle being, you know, arguably top 5, maybe top 10 greatest baseball players of all time. And
it's nice of you to upgrade him a little bit since the last time you slandered him as a Boston Red Sox fan.
Sorry, I'm not sorry. But you look at Mantle, and what's a PSA 7 Mantle worth? I mean, I get 52 Topps, all this stuff, but you know, it's ridiculous. It's $300,000, and so to be able to pick up a Unitas rookie and a PSA 7 for about $2,500 seems so cheap. It's silly, and I just think it's a great pick.
I couldn't agree more. In terms of silly, do I have something for you here, buddy?
Oh, let's go.
Trading cards and memorabilia have seen incredible growth as an alternative investment. The company leading the growth? PWCC Marketplace. PWCC Marketplace runs the largest weekly auction of authenticated sports cards, Pokemon cards, comic books, video games, and memorabilia in the world. PWCC Marketplace also has more than 65,000 items listed in their fixed price marketplace that you can make an offer on right now. Head over to pwccmarketplace.com and see why they're the best option for buying and selling trading cards, memorabilia, and all of your collectibles. Pick a number, any number, whatever it may be. We got a number inside, but we want a magic number. All right, this is where we're going to pick a few big cards that enter in an auction over the next couple of days, and we're going to try and guess how much they sell for in advance. Throw out a number. We got one too.
The question I have for you here as we do magic number this week. It's a rough week for you in week 21.
Uh-oh.
Your boy pulled out the broom.
Ouch.
So you're now 13 back. The question becomes, as a GM, are you going tank mode? Or are you just going to try to claw your way back?
There's nothing to tank for. I got to try.
All right. Speaking of trying, the first one we're going to have your first try at is a LeBron James rookie, 2003 Upper Deck Finite Signatures LeBron James rookie auto in a PSA 1010. Perfect card condition, perfect autograph. Dive into this LeBron on-card rookie auto for us and ultimately where you think the hammer's going to strike.
Yeah, really cool card. I love how it's not a sticker auto, it's an on-card auto, and they manufacture the card with a nice spot for the autograph on here. This auto on this card is known to fade over time, and that's why, being a dual PSA 10, this is only a pop 3. It's a really, really neat looking card. There are 17 PSA 10s, but there's 3 dual PSA 10s. So some of those might not have been reviewed for an auto grade yet, but my guess is some of those either have some little streaking in the auto or they're a little bit faded. And the timing on this card is incredible, right? Like, got the Lakers up 2-1 in the series. They got a game tonight. This thing's going to close Sunday right around where the series is it'll be wrapped up at that point, I believe. It's a game 4 tonight. I think they're playing every other night until then. So Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, it could be game 7 when this closes. That would be pretty sweet. But so it obviously it's silly, but how the Lakers do in the series will impact the value of this card. And I believe in my Lakers. They're up 2-1. They're at home tonight. They're favorites tonight. They're going to win tonight. And so with all that being said, I'm at $17,350.
Ooh, that's actually damn good. Okay, so you think they're going to win tonight. Our people will be listening to this either late tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, and they'll be able to be like, boy, that Jesse guy was wrong. Stick to cards, not betting.
Wait a second. Do you have some insider information on the Warriors I don't know about?
No, I don't. Actually,
I need to reverse my DraftKings bet. Damn it!
Let me write down your number there. Just you said
17,350.
350. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Okay, this is a really interesting card because, to your point, there's 20 PSA 10s. This one comes with the auto grade, making it a pop 3. So there's a little bit of false scarcity, but I don't think you're wrong with it enhancing the value. Now, what's interesting to me, and maybe I'm way off here, it's not serial numbered.
It is not.
But Beckett is claiming 150 copies were produced.
Are they?
That's what the report says. So that's interesting to me. Now, there is a more sought-after gold version that's serial numbered to 10. Fantastic card. I will say this. A PSA 10 sold earlier this year for $16,800. Even with the Lakers' resurgence this season, LeBron's market is down about 20% the last 3 months. So this push, though, right? If you've been watching TV, I try not to do that. But there's all these debates now. Steph Curry, LeBron James, whoever wins this series is going to, if LeBron wins, he's going to cement himself as the best of this era. If, Curry beats him and wins another championship, all of a sudden that debate starts fueling and Michael Jordan gets left alone. I'm seeing where this is at. I'm surprised how hot this came out of the gate. And it's making me a little bit nervous. I'm below you here. I'm actually going to come in at 16,400 on this one. I'm looking at it. I know it's got the 10-10 grade. 16.8 was the last comp. It's weird. So here's what's interesting. You mentioned the auto fading on these, and I'm quite familiar with that. The 10 that sold didn't have the auto grade, but it had a bolder auto than what's on this one. I think just the overall sophistication of the market, the evolution, people won't be necessarily influenced by that pop 3 versus the pop 17. And so going to come in a little bit lower than you here at 16.4. The next one, switching it up. This was difficult because this really isn't my sector of the hobby, but obviously Ohtani just on fire right now. I'm going to talk about the 2018 Bowman Rookie Autographs Chrome Green Refractor Shohei Ohtani auto, serial number to 99 and PSA 10 gem mint. This is the pitching variation, white uniform. Yep. There is a chrome green hitting variation, also numbered to 99, in a red uniform. Both are actually pop 9s. There was a hitting variation that sold about 2 weeks ago, but it was serial number 1. And I think we've talked about this, but we can use it as a little bit of an education. Typically, Jesse, what do you see about an uptick of maybe 15 to 20% with the first serial number? And I think maybe a little bit different when you think about Ohtani's collector base. Many of them are really keen on numbers and their meaning.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit more for Ohtani typically, but also depends on the set. Like if it's the first year of a set being produced, and for example, 03 Exquisite LeBron serial numbered 1 of anything, they carry a larger premium than an 04 or 05 or 06.
Right.
Because it's the first year that insert maybe was ever produced. So theoretically, you can say, well, this is the first card that was ever produced for this set for this player.
Gotcha.
And that's where you can get a little bit more of a premium. It's the first year they start producing something.
Yeah. So that's interesting to note about that last comp from a couple of weeks ago. That was serial number 1. As a player right now, Ohtani is the closest thing to Babe Ruth. Someone we talked about a little bit earlier. And in Ruth's playing days, I'm not sure his brand was global at that time. Ohtani, just joined Ruth as the only player with 500 strikeouts and 100 home runs. This started a little bit hotter than where I thought it would be at this point. It's making me a little bit nervous. I'm going to come in here at 26,260 on the Ohtani Green Refractor.
Okay. I am below you.
Wow. No faith. No faith.
I have faith in my boy LeBron. I don't have faith in the Angels. All right. So
right. Well, they're not in the downswing part of the season. They're second in their division right now.
That's
even though
true.
They've lost two
That's
in a
true.
row.
Yeah, they're above 500, which is the first time I've been able to say that. Feels like the last few years. But this card specifically, I think what's gonna hold it back a little bit is the autograph. The autograph does have some little streaking in it, so I don't think this would dual PSA 10.
It wouldn't.
But like you mentioned, it's also the pitching variation, which is less appealing to collectors than the batting variation.
Even though he's a better pitcher?
Even though he's a better pitcher than yeah, exactly. I know it's silly, but pitchers don't get love, hitters get love, and that's the way it is. I don't make the rules. But he is the best player in baseball, and it's because of what he can do both on the plate and the mound. So it is pretty cool and unique that he has one card of each. It definitely affects supply, but then people will gravitate towards one or the other. So I have this one at 24,450, so I'm just underneath you.
I actually don't mind that at all. Some of the valuation sites out there were way low on this one, and I didn't understand it. Some of the valuations on this were like 16. I'm like, we're already at 13.2. That's impossible. The one thing that's interesting is you're right. Like the batting one seems to have like a slight premium over the pitching, but the pitching one, if you look at the sales history, has sold substantially
less.
Yes. Frequently.
It's definitely less supply.
Yeah, and when this card first released, you remember the hubbub that was, people were paying just astronomical amounts for these cards and the gold, and it always felt like the pitcher's one was getting the hype then. So very interesting. This one's close. Basically are playing the over-under game here, but I think you might get me there. The last one, wildly different, 2018 Panini Flawless Green, Kevin Durant patch auto to 5 in a BGS 9.5. Talk to us a little bit about this card. Flawless. This is a good flawless card, and maybe Kevin Durant's market. Certainly the vibe has changed. We're down 0-2 to Denver, tied it up last night, now 2-2.
First of all, shout out to Devin Booker. Guy's playing absolutely out of his mind.
It's 2 on 5.
Oh my God, he's unbelievable. So I picked this card. Usually I like to give you a good zinger here at the end. I picked this one because I think it's a really pretty card and it's relevant, right? So it's not crazy valuable by any means, but the patch on this card is a topic that we haven't really talked much about, and that is Flawless started in 2018. Once these players were getting sponsorships on their jerseys, they started making these sponsors patches. And it's kind of interesting because I've talked to many different people in the space, and there's mixed reviews on it. Some people love them. Some people don't like them because it's not, a true piece of the jersey. It's a patch from a sponsor. And there's one of Giannis I've seen that, because Harley Davidson was a sponsor for the Bucks for a while, and I don't think they are anymore, but
I think it matters. Do you think it matters on the company? Like Harley Davidson's a national brand. You start spitting out FTX there.
I do think it's a little bit different. That's fair. Yeah, I do think it matters. But personally, I love them because they can make for some cool, unique patches you don't normally see. And I think the aesthetics of this card are great. It's numbered out of 5, on card auto. It's got the EN from what's the company? I can't ever pronounce the name. That sponsor the Warriors, Tukin or whatever. It's some foreign company, I think. But I really like the look of it. And there's it's a red and white patch, but it's the EN from the sponsorship patch. So I think it's a really cool card. Value on this one's a little bit tough because these don't, they don't trade a ton. But I've got this one because of relevancy, assuming they keep playing well. I've got this one finishing at 3,700.
It's a really good guess. Panini made
Thanks.
a lot of this stuff, And just digging into it, there's nearly 500 unique Kevin Durant flawless cards since 2012. This one's game worn. That helps. Autograph on card, that helps. The Suns again tie it up at 2-2. That helps. I think Game 5 is in about 24 hours from now, and that's the series swing game. So that'll surely have an impact on this. And
oh yeah, Suns win on the road. Watch this thing tick up.
Yep. Completely agree. But, until Durant kind of gets over that hump and wins a championship where he's perceived as the driving force, of the things that
hold on a second. He was the MVP for the Warriors.
I completely agree with you,
twice.
but that's not how it's viewed. He left there. The three guys are homegrown.
Still won it.
They had already won it before his arrival. He was just kind of the icing on the cake. So I just, the disloyalty, the changing of the teams, not being on the court enough over the last couple of years.
I get the brand question. If this is a different player, this card's probably $6, $7, $8 But if this is Curry, it's a $12,000 card.
Oh, completely agree.
Right.
He's actually likable.
Yeah, that's true.
You think we could get Kevin Durant
on the podcast?
A barber that travels with him?
Oh God,
you got to get that figured out.
I know. Let's get this guy lined up. But look, the reality here too, though, is that the narrative even in this playoffs. I talked about Booker. Like Booker's playing out of his mind.
Yes.
So it's not just the Kevin Durant.
But the Suns didn't have the Suns didn't have a freaking prayer of winning this, right? So when he comes and now they're playing 2-on-5,
basically,
a Kogi.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not great.
It's no different than the Nuggets playing 2-on-5.
Yeah, I mean, they got some other guys, right? Like you got some other guys. You got Gordon, you got Michael Porter Jr. Like they're both competent. Like Ayton is not playing to the level that is all of a sudden you just look at the box score. Right, I mean, it's a two-man game. So this is interesting, right? We obviously have some of the factors of Durant not being as likable, some outside market conditions, that's kind of hindered Durant's market over the last 12 months. This actually sold for $6,100 last September. And I do believe that what transpires over the next couple days is going to determine this winner. There was a BGS 9 that sold in March for about $2,500. So Game 3 is really going to impact this card's value. I think you did a good job with your guess. I'm going to come in just slightly below you and think that Denver steals Game 5. I'm going to be at 35.80 on this one.
Okay.
And whoever wins Game 5
on this one.
Yes. It's one of those cards, right? I was just looking at some of the value charts. They think it's worth $3,100. If the 9 is doing $2,500, I think that's obviously a little bit light. You guys, I always factor in for your marketing. It's far superior than what's out there. So I always try to factor that in a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm going to come in a little bit below you. I think ultimately the winner is whoever wins Game 5. I think that's effectively what we're betting. And we're betting this with no VIG. So that's the benefit to both you and I.
I think the winner, the winner is whoever wins the series. Now, obviously, if you win Game 5, you have a huge advantage.
Yeah.
But yes, the winner, which I think Game 7 would be on Saturday. So this series will be determined by the time this card closes this Sunday. And to your point,
what's today? Today's Monday.
Today's Monday. Yeah.
So they're playing.
So Game 5, it's
Game 5
it's either
is Tuesday.
Game 5 is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah, I think they go every other day now.
Okay, even though they'll be doing the traveling in between.
Because I think I saw that. I'm going to double.
You know what? I think you're probably right. They would put this in primetime Sunday at the very latest. Okay, so we'll figure out the one.
It would be Game 7, if necessary, would be on Sunday, the day this closes.
Yep, I
Same
figured
with
they would
Lakers,
do that.
Game 7 if necessary, and Celtics, 76ers if necessary.
It's going to be a big day Sunday.
Let's hope for 3 Game 7s. I mean, good Lord, what a day for the NBA if that happens.
That would be an absolute blast. And ultimately, whoever wins this series, to your point, is probably going to win the final card and magic number this week.
Damn, that's a ghost. We're going to highlight a card that hasn't sold in more than a year right now, or is serial numbered to less than 100 copies produced. We're going to talk about why this card is significant, maybe in terms of hobbies or language or just the overall rarity of it all, and why it's considered a ghost.
I teased this card a little bit earlier, and in this grade, it's an absolute ghost. The 1957 Topps Basketball Bill Russell rookie in PSA 8.5 near mint plus condition. It comes with the PWCC Eye Appeal sticker. This card it's a museum piece. Talk to us a little bit about this one.
Oh, God, I love this card. So this hasn't sold in almost 2 years. It's currently sitting, if you include the buyer's premium, at $480,000. So in a PSA 8.5, it did get a PWCC.
Do you remember what
sticker.
it went for 2 years ago?
Previously, I think it was 6 something.
Okay.
Low sixes.
Yep.
It was high fives or low sixes. And that's like in the heat of the market, right? But, to show with 3 days left, it's already at $480,000. It did receive a PWCC A sticker. It's a Pop 2 PSA 8.5. There's only 3 PSA 9s that exist, and there are 0 PSA 10s. The fact that we gave it an A, I've seen many copies of this card. The print and color on this card are the best I've ever seen. The centering is really damn good for this card, which are the 2 biggest issues this card typically has. There's a chance. I haven't seen the 9s, but there's a chance this is the nicest copy that exists on the planet. If they're old PSA 9 grades, there's a chance this one's nicer. Just keep that in mind. So someone could be trying to buy the nicest Bill Russell rookie in existence. He's one of the best to ever do it. 11-time, champion. He won twice as a coach, for crying out loud. 5-time MVP, 3-time All-NBA first team, which, looking at that, actually, I've never understood that. How you can win 5 MVPs and not make at least 5 All-NBA first teams. I've never understood how that works, which that's weird. But this card is a ghost. It's an absolute beast. I'm really excited to see where this shakes out Thursday night when Premiere closes. And so that's why it's the ghost for the week.
Would be the least surprising thing if it eclipses the last sale, right? To your point, though, I think it would be fun to see all 5 lined up side by side, right? The 3 8.5s, the 2 PS. It just would not shock me if this one is the best copy. It ends Thursday night at pwccmarketplace.com. This to me, and this is the cornerstone of a collection. This is literally a museum piece. I know a lot of people, have kind of gotten on us because we're talking about some cards that are unobtainable for 99% of collectors. But it's just sometimes you get a card this beautiful, you just have to talk about it. I mean, it is really scarce for a base set as well. And you start to realize why when you hear about production and you start to think about the 57 Topps brand and why it's so popular. And it was really the only mainstream hoop set from 1948 to 1968. Like this is the one that's in between there. There's those long gaps. If you think about the production, Topps basically fit an 80 card series onto a printing sheet. And that basically resulted in 30 single prints, 49 double prints. And then the best player perceived at the time was Bob Pettit. He was a quadruple print. Specific to Bill Russell, he was the only star from the set, of which there ended up being 22 Hall of Famers, that wasn't a double print. And so that's why it's a little bit scarce. Most notable player, least printed, landmark set. You can see why it's going to fetch a massive number here. And then when you start getting into all the print issues, that's a set that's notoriously off center. There's tons of snowing. There's print dots, and this receiving the grade and the eye appeal sticker from you guys. This is a landmark card here for sure.
Yeah, I love this card.
So we doing this or are we doing that? You tell me and we'll tell you. We're going to compare 2 cards right now with similar value that are completely different. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you have a vintage Mickey Mantle baseball card worth $30,000. But you also have a modern day Joe Burrow rookie card worth $30,000. Which one would you rather have and why? You tell us, we're going to tell you right now.
2 cards that aren't too shabby.
Yeah.
You did well here. The first is a 2007 Exquisite Collection Noble Nameplates LeBron patch auto to 25. Do we want that one, or do we want the 2009 Topps Chrome Steph Curry rookie to $9.99 in BGS gem mint condition? The floor is yours. I almost went first this time, but I'm going to give you the floor. You're
okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. This one's really difficult, right? Because they've comped out recently at virtually the same price, but their peaks were vastly different. If you go back to like February 2022, the 07 LeBron Exquisite Noble Nameplate hit nearly 46K. The Topps Chrome Curry at its peak only touched 30K in a BGS 9.5. So the data shows a history of what's potentially possible, and it favors the Noble Nameplate LeBron. What's interesting, though, is like behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk about all these patch auto cards, just the sheer number of exquisite offerings, despite, the run only going from 03 to 09. There's over 485 unique LeBron James exquisite cards, and that's before you get into the print runs of each one. There's 6 different Noble Nameplate LeBrons over the years. You can always find a version of an exquisite LeBron. If you look at the Curry between PSA, Beckett, and SGC, there's only 212 min gem or better grade Steph Curry Topps Chrome rookies. And I absolutely loved the base Curry is serial numbered to less than 1,000.
Yeah.
And so I think when you can combine iconic player, iconic card brand, extremely recognizable asset, right? But it has some rarity built in. Those are like the core 4 factors for me. So I'd lean with the Steph Curry despite the peaks of the 2 cards not being the same. I would certainly spend a few extra dollars and get a true gem mint copy. And, just kind of being truthful here, this debate's a little bit easier for me because I have the 03 version of the LeBron Noble Nameplate. So I would gravitate more towards the Curry here.
Got it. That makes sense. I'm not going to pick until the series is over. No, I kid.
Boom. Let's wrap it up.
Boom,
we're out of here.
Let's wrap it up. And we're done. No, but, we talked about it earlier in the show, and, these guys, it's relevant. So I paired these guys up against each other, and it was, a nice talking point for the week. But, you look at the LeBron, like you mentioned, game use, it's on-card auto. There are quite a few from Exquisite with him, but it's an iconic Exquisite brand. With Curry, you've got like you mentioned, it's a numbered base rookie, which is pretty sweet. You don't see that very often. It is like one of his blue chip assets in gem mint condition. So the real question here is, do you want a blue chip rookie card or a non-rookie game use patch on-card auto, both in, both the greatest shooter of all time versus the greatest scorer of all time? That's literally the conversation here. And admittingly, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, I'm not only a Laker fan, but I'm a sucker for game use patch on card autos. So I'm going the opposite of you on this one, and I'm taking the Noble Nameplates LeBron.
Big shock. This guy said did you just say he was the best scorer of all time, or was he a compiler? I didn't hear what you said.
I did say the best scorer of all time.
He's done a good job scoring over the years.
If you want to statistically have that argument, it's probably not going to end up well for you because I've actually had to do a deep dive on this before.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually
your
it's
life's
pretty
on
impressive.
the line. Both players are in their prime. Go get a basket. You're going LeBron over Jordan.
If he's not shooting a 3, yes. If LeBron goes to the hoop, I'd go LeBron.
Wow. Okay.
I know. He has more clutch time
Listen,
points.
Before our listeners just turn off this podcast and never tune in again because of that.
I didn't say he was the greatest
statement.
basketball player of all time. I said he was the greatest scorer of all time.
That's what the total number says. Yes.
Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time.
Beautiful. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on at PWCC. You guys are doing great things with the premier auctions, kind of splitting some things up and focusing on certain aspects of the hobby. Obviously, I'm a big baseball guy, so I love the fact that you have a vintage premier auction that's ending here in a couple days as well.
Yes, so we've got the vintage premiere ending on Thursday. Coinciding with that, we have our main May premiere auction that has a combination of everything launching that Thursday as well. We're launching a pop culture auction towards the end of this month, so that's going to have comics, video games, TCG items. That'll be a fun one to do. And then once we get into June, we're going to do another vintage premiere auction. We're going to do our main June premiere, and we're going to throw a coin premier auction out there at the end of the month in June.
Interesting. Dabbling in the coins.
Yeah, we are. We're doing quite a bit of different things.
I like it.
Yep.
Is that it? You got something more for me?
That's it. Just I would get into this. This Thursday is going to be really fun. I'm really excited to watch this vintage close. I want to see where this Russell ends up. There's some other cards in there that I'm really curious to see where they finish at. So it'll be a fun Thursday night.
Whether you're bidding or watching, pwccmarketplace.com. The direct link to the website is atop the podcast description. We will talk next week, kind sir.
Make sure you follow Payne on Twitter at Payne Insider. Subscribe to Bet the Board and get notified when new episodes of CardBoard Chat air on Tuesdays. And be sure to stop by pwccmarketplace.com for all your collecting needs.